Today I share with you a story of unimaginable brutality, savage abuse, and the fight for truth. My name is Mani Tinishinanan, but it's not about me. It's about my sisters and the horrific atrocities they have faced in Bolivia. This is not just an urgent message, it's a call to action. The world must hear and acknowledge the atrocities committed against us, and this abuse must stop. My sisters, fellow monks, were subjected to inhuman, degrading treatment in Bolivia, arbitrary detention, forced deportation, and abandonment at the border. The New York Times spread false and malicious narratives about them, labeling them as criminals. This is part of a larger pattern where media outlets perpetuate genocidal, sexually abusive, and harassing campaigns against indigenous and minority groups, including our female monastic order. The brutal persecution of Hindu women is a grave injustice that will not be tolerated. This is not just a persecution, it's a systematic attempt to erase our existence and destroy our community through sheer brutality. The New York Times actions are particularly egregious. They knew the truth but choose to distort it. They ignore the legal visas, humanitarian work, and real persecution faced by Hindu women. Instead, they portray them as frauds, echoing the same lies that drove them from India. Shockingly, they publish these falsehoods without even contacting us from our side of the story, further demonstrating their bias and disregard for the truth. Deportation without due process is blatant violation of human rights and a form of state-sponsored terrorism. This is not journalism. It's a deliberate attempt to incite hatred and violence, and it must be condemned as a heinous act. We are not criminals. We are Hindu monks. We will continue to fight for our dignity, our faith, and the truth that will soon be revealed. Let us stand together against this injustice. The persecution of Hindu women will not break us. It will only unite us stronger in our resolve for justice. The world must ask, why was a peaceful spiritual mission met with rifles and deportation? Why does the New York Times smear Hindu women while ignoring that persecution? Who benefits from silencing us? This is not just about Kailasha. It's about every minority standing against oppression. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and we will not stand idle by. The persecution of Hindu women is a global shame that demands immediate action, attention. To clarify the context of our mission and thus the misinformation spread by media outlets, it's essential to note that Bhagwan Sri Nityananda Paramashivam, the founder of Kailasha, was never in Bolivia. He never signed any documents related to this incident. The agreement with indigenous nations was between US-based Hindu organization and them, signed after multiple legal reviews and notaries. None of the 19 women involved signed that memorandum of understanding. They all entered Bolivia as volunteers on valid visas, adhering to all visa requirements. My sisters were subjected to arbitrary and unlawful imprisonment, held for 24 hours without food or water, a clear violation of their basic human rights. 2 days later, armed officers stormed the airport, kidnapping 19 women, including a pregnant lady and minor children. Unarmed, defenseless monks. They were thrown into buses and driven for hours to the Bolivia-Peru border under dire conditions, without food or water. This was unwarranted terror inflicted on Hindu monks, a brutal act of state-sponsored violence. Human rights are not a privilege, they are a fundamental right, and their violation is a grave crime against humanity. This is not just abuse, it's a systematic attempt to destroy the community and erase our existence through sheer brutality. As a Kailashavasi, for over 10 years, I've witnessed profound spiritual growth and love within our community. It's deeply painful to see my sister and our community misrepresented by false narratives. Due to the deep hatred incited by these media outlets, our female monks are unable to freely express their religious traditions and beliefs in public, even in their attire, endangering their lives. The persecution of Hindu women will not erase our identity, it will only strengthen our resolve to stand against injustice. The New York Times is a repeat offender in inciting hate and Hindu genocide. Their actions are part of a broader pattern of media outlets perpetuating violence against minorities. We must ask, by what authority does the New York Times interfere in diplomatic relations between USA, Hindus, Bolivia indigenous communities? Why involve Supreme Panel of Hinduism? And it's not uh, to any agreements with Bolivian and indigenous communities. Media bias fuels hate crimes against minorities. And this is a reprehensible act that demands accountability. The New York Times must be held accountable for its role in inciting violence and perpetuating genocide. So these actions are seen as instigating mob violence against all Hindus and reflect malicious intent to systematically attack the Hindu diaspora. We will not let our lies silence us. We will stand together against injustice and fight for the rights to practice our faith freely. Together we can make a difference, one voice at a time, and we will not be silenced. Our aim is to stop this campaign once and for all and bring the truth out. I will personally support legal actions against those responsible for inciting Hindu genocide by repeatedly publishing lies aiming to incite hate and delegitimize our efforts to establish the Hindu nation. Thank you for listening to this urgent call to action. The world must hear and acknowledge the atrocities committed against us, and this abuse must stop. Together we can make a difference by standing for truth,